So let me get this straight. It's just a bigger screen. What's up, everybody? It's your boy Aero Axel back in the building, bringing you another video here on Team Next Phase, and we have a lot of really cool things to talk about today. First and foremost, if you're not following us already, hit that subscribe button, follow us on TikTok, on Instagram, and leave a like if you enjoyed the video. And if you're not following me, you can follow me on Instagram. I post daily content around Pokemon, whether it's merchandise, games, clay models, you name it, it's there. So we had some pretty interesting news announced. So we finally got the reveal for the new Nintendo Switch, and I'm using new as a very loose term here. So we're gonna dive into the trailer video, kind of break it down really quickly, because there's really not much to cover. But there's a little bit of a discussion I want to have on the future of the Switch and obviously the Pokemon franchise games that are coming out later this year and early next year. So without further ado, let's get into this trailer and let's discuss. So we have the new Nintendo Switch OLED model. So this is the announcement trailer for the Switch. We're not going to watch the whole entire thing because there's really not much to really cover here. So as you guys can see, let me just mute it real quick. So the design of the Switch, pretty much standard for what we're expecting from the Nintendo Switch itself. You got your two Joy-Cons over here, and then obviously the main frame for the screen. Now, obviously the biggest thing that we first notice is the screen is much larger than the current Nintendo Switch model. So you have a 7-inch OLED screen pushing out that 720p on a beautiful OLED screen. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm super hype about the new screen, super hype about the size of the screen, because obviously the bezels, as you can see here, do shrink, and that was one of the biggest and common complaints about the current generation of the Switch. Now, we also have to remember the Nintendo Switch did release about 3 or 4 years ago. I think it was 2017, so it was time for a brand new refresh and upgrade to the current Switch model to obviously fit more recent handheld devices. Obviously, cell phones are pretty much doing away with any bezel on their screen, so it's only a matter of time before we saw the Switch hit that. Now, we're about to see something come up right now that really caught my eye here, and then this is Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Now, as you can see, this is a screenshot from the earlier part of the game that we've seen in some of the early trailers, but at first glance, you might notice, and it might not be recognizable at first, but the graphics do slightly look better. Now, I don't know if that's specifically for the trailer. I don't know if there has been graphical improvements to the game since the initial trailer, which I would assume and hope so. But the game overall actually has it looks a little less bright and vibrant, which I personally like, because the cartooniness of the original trailer didn't really appeal to me as much. But the game is looking much sharper, much more crisp, and as you can see, the actual animations of the game itself. So that was some new footage of Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl. There he goes, throwing the Pokeball, get the little weasel inside of the Pokeball, and it's been captured. Now, at the end of the day, game looks amazing. I'm sure it's going to look great on that screen. Now, the only other change, as you can see, is the wide adjustable stand, which I think is a perfect addition for those that do play it on its stand. Obviously, the original Switch, as we all know, had a dinky little kickstand that came out the back, very flimsy, broke off pretty much every single time, and this is a much more improved way of docking your Switch on a desk to play with other people. Now, the biggest complaint here is there's no changes internally. There's nothing changing with the Switch hardware. It's still running on an Integra chip that is dated at this point, right? And if we're thinking about the next generation games, if we're thinking about the future of the Nintendo Switch, now this could be a temporary refresh just for the holiday season. They could potentially be working on a more powerful OLED model that will release next year, which I would assume so. So think of it as, here's your new design, here's your new framework of what this system will look like, and then next year we'll release it with a more powerful processor, more powerful screen, so maybe we can get 1080p off of the screen in handheld mode and 4K in docked, who knows. But this is clearly not what a lot of us were expecting. There was a ton of rumors going around for the new Switch Pro, and clearly that wasn't the case. As you can see, they have incorporated wired LAN support for the dock, which should have been a standard by this point, because wired LAN connections for a gaming console has been around since like 2008. So it's not a new feature, but obviously Nintendo brings things from like 10 years ago and considers it to be something new. So at the end of the day, I love the design. I love the new OLED screen. I think it's going to be a wonderful system, especially for people just purchasing a Nintendo Switch for the first time. I think it's going to be a really, really cool gift to give somebody. I do have a regular Switch. I have a Switch Lite. I don't know whether or not I'll be picking up the OLED Switch, because at this point, you know, I have what I need. I have my regular Switch to have docked if I want to play on the TV, and I have my Switch Lite, which I love to play on the go in bed. Do I, you know, would it be nice to have a bigger screen? Of course, but at this point, I'm looking for a more powerful system. Now, the thing that really concerns me here is we were expecting the Switch or the new Switch Pro to release with better hardware, better performance. Now, with a game like Legends Arceus that will be releasing early January, it's clear that this is the console that is going to be going into the first half of next year. So with no graphical performance enhancements, is the game going to run on the Switch the way we think it is? Because I know when they first showed the gameplay, the footage, there were some frame rate issues. It did look like it was getting choppy in certain areas, and I know it's an early build. That's something they could work out a little bit later, and we have games like Breath of the Wild that run perfectly on the Switch, you know, despite some hiccups here and there if there's a lot going on screen. But Breath of the Wild, massive game, massive amounts of things going on, so I know it's capable of doing it. You have third-party games like Doom Eternal. You have third-party games on the Switch that can run, but Game Freak is still fairly new to building AAA titles to that scale, and I'm hoping that this is why they took the approach of having a third party develop Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, so this way they could focus in on making sure that this game was perfect quality for us to see. So I'm really intrigued to see how Legends Arceus is going to run. I mean, the OLED screen is definitely going to make the game look vibrant, much more immersive and beautiful in handheld mode, which typically, and statistics show, that most players actually play the Switch in handheld mode, and I'll be one to attest to that myself. I prefer playing in handheld mode more than I do on a dock. As much as I enjoy playing on a big screen, it's just more convenient. It's easy to just hop in the game, hop out right before bed, when you wake up in the morning, whatever the case is. So yeah, a little bit disappointed that the Switch did not upgrade its internal hardware to match the new, sleeker design, better screen. If they would have just increased the power and performance, this thing would have sold like crazy. But for the fact that they gave you a slightly larger screen running on an OLED screen, and they're going to charge you full price plus $50, because the original price of the Switch is $299, and now you're looking at $350 for this new Switch with no graphical performances, no, you know, updates to anything internally, just a slight design change with a better screen. And I think it does have 64 gigabytes of internal memory as opposed to the 32 gigs that come on the regular Switch. But does that warrant that extra $50 for a new device? Now, if they would have released this at maybe a $250 price point, $50 less than what the regular Switch initially launched for, because technically it's not a new console, it is a refresh. It's a refresh of an existing system, and that's looking at things like, let's say, the PlayStation 2 Slim, which sold for less than the original PS2, but a sleeker design, much more refined. This thing would have sold like crazy. I guarantee you, I probably would have bought one for $250. I'll tell you that right now. But $100 more, don't know if the price point really warrants the upgrades that we're seeing here. And honestly, like I said, it did let down a lot of people, as myself, because I was hoping this year we would get a new and more powerful Nintendo Switch, and it doesn't look like that seems to be the case. But let us know in the comment sections below. Are you excited for the new Nintendo Switch OLED screen? Are you excited for Pokemon Legends Arceus, Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl? Are you picking up the games? Are you picking them up with the new system? Let us know in the comment sections below, and we'll be seeing you next week.